We are really looking forward to Metroid Samus Returns for the Nintendo 3DS. This is a complete remake of Metroid II: Return of Samus for the original Game Boy. Even though we are seeing many games getting remade, it's not very common to see remakes of handheld games. That's why we want to take a look at 10 classic handheld games that could really use a remake for modern devices. One of those gems is the Golden Sun series, in which a group of magically attuned adepts need to stop a mysterious power called alchemy. It started in 2001 on the Game Boy Advance, followed by a sequel 1 year later. In 2010, Golden Sun Dark Dawn was made for the Nintendo DS, but after that, it became quiet. We would like to see a remake of the first 2 Golden Sun games to reintroduce gamers to a series that's sadly almost forgotten. It's such a shame that Nintendo is not doing more with the Advance Wars series. In the early 2000s, Nintendo released 2 Advance Wars games on the Game Boy Advance, while we got Dual Strike and Days of Ruin on the Nintendo DS. But things have been quiet for almost 10 years now. With the love Valkyria Chronicles is getting, it should also be possible to revamp Advance Wars and completely remake the first 2 games in a modern way. More real-time action to break up the turn-based gameplay would certainly be a nice addition. Nintendo, just please give us more Advance Wars.
Mission complete.
The Castlevania series has been tremendous over the years and peaked during the 2D era. Symphony of the Night is often considered the best the franchise has to offer. When it comes to handheld games, we would like to see the GBA games remade. That would be Circle of the Moon, Aria of Sorrow, and Harmony of Dissonance. These games are amazing in their gameplay and could use a graphical overhaul. We've been seeing lots of amazing pixelated games in recent years, so having a modern pixel art version of these old GBA games would be amazing. Konami has the rights to the series, so it's all up to them, unfortunately. The Fire Emblem series has been a fan favorite for years now. The series has been around since the early 90s in Japan, but it took another 10 years before Fire Emblem hit the Western market. Both Fire Emblem and the Sacred Stones were well received and paved the way for the series. We would love to see a remake of at least the very first Fire Emblem. Updated graphics and an enhanced combat system would make it the perfect nostalgia game on the Nintendo 3DS. It's almost 15 years since the series moved to the West, so it's time to go back and help Lyn, Elwood, and Hector and stop the threat on the continent of Elibe. On the Wii U, we have seen the remasters of Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, while Ocarina of Time got remade on the Nintendo 3DS. But these were all console games that were upgraded for newer systems. We would like to see a bit more love for the handheld Zelda games too. Let's start with Diminished Cap. This game is all about shrinking Link thanks to his talking cap called Aslo. Being a smaller version of Link gave a new perspective and introduced the bug-sized Minish to the player. It's an underappreciated gem that should be played by a newer generation of gamers. The second Zelda game we would like to see remade is The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. This was originally a Game Boy game, but was re-released on the Game Boy Color as well. The game was praised for its depth and number of features. A remake of this game in the 3D engine with all the mechanics of the more modern Zelda games would be great. We've seen the Sonic the Hedgehog series on many systems already, but for this video, we would like to highlight a couple of games that were released specifically for the Game Gear and the Master System. Triple Trouble, Sonic Chaos, and Sonic Blast are the lesser-known games in the Sonic series. These platform games should be remade for modern handheld systems, simply because it's almost like a forgotten chapter in the Sonic franchise. There is so much hype surrounding Sonic Mania that we can imagine gamers being interested in seeing more 2D Sonic games being remade with modern graphics. So, Sega, let's start with reviving these forgotten Game Gear games, shall we? The old-school Mega Man games for the NES have already been remastered for modern consoles, but why not take a look at some handheld games as well? Mega Man Zero on the Game Boy Advance was a great game that has been praised for its story, graphics, and tweaks on the classic Mega Man formula. It even spawned several sequels, and of course, Mega Man Zero was still extremely challenging. Let's remake this game with fresh graphics and controls that are more akin to modern platformers. By all means, make the game a bit easier, but Capcom always keep the original difficulty as an homage to the original game. Square Enix has been remaking games from the Final Fantasy series for years, so listing one of those games in this video doesn't make much sense. But what about Final Fantasy Legend, which was only named Final Fantasy for marketing reasons? Actually, this Game Boy game was the start of the Saga series, which ended during the PlayStation 2 era. This long-forgotten series could be revived. Its emphasis on open-world exploration and non-linear branching plots make it very similar to modern RPGs, even though the gameplay would be a bit odd. But modernize this along the lines of more popular series and the Saga series might thrive once more. Tails Adventure was an adventure game based in the same universe as Sonic the Hedgehog. This spin-off was a lot slower in pace, however, and you'd spend more time searching for objects to use later in the game. Tails Adventure is a lot more puzzle-based compared with the Sonic games. Doing a remake of this Game Gear game would be great, as it brings the universe of Sonic to new genres. But let's keep the 2D aspect of the gameplay and make the game more Metroidvania. Hey, we can always dream, right? Speaking of dreams, even though Kirby is nowadays known as this happy, power-absorbing pink blob, he wasn't always pink. Kirby made his debut in Kirbys Dreamland on the Game Boy. Hardware limitations forced the designers to make him white instead. Did you know Kirby didn't even have his absorbing abilities in this game? Kirbys Dreamland has been re-released as a download and was part of the Anniversary Collection as well. But it would be awesome to see a complete remake with modern graphics, including his famous absorption powers. We'd go to Dreamland again any day. And there you have it. We know we mentioned a lot more than 10 games, but there are so many great handheld games that deserve more love. Do you know any handheld games that could use a modern remake? Let us know in the comments and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.